Matt, I just want to say before, in case this conversation gets heated, I'm a big fan of yours, even though I'm a theist. And, yeah, I like your logic, the way you think. And
do I deserve to go to hell? I'm sorry. I shouldn't saddle you with Mark stuff, but go ahead. What'd you have for us today?
I actually don't believe that. But, yeah, I just want to say I learned a lot of debating skills from you, and especially the null hypothesis. That helped me a lot, and stuff like that. Yeah, like when I used to debate other theists, it took hours sometimes because I was busy trying to convince them why their position is wrong. Now it just takes minutes. All I got to do is make sure they don't shift the burden of proof. That's it. So,
awesome. So this call should go amazingly.
Yeah. I just want to ask you something. I heard in a couple of your shows way back, and some not so way back. You said it a few times. You talked about how the Bible. You said the language died out, and we can't really know the true meaning. Like God didn't protect it like He should have, and Jesus, you can't really prove He exists, or if He did.
Well, those are two different things.
Yeah.
The Bible is written in Hebrew, Greek, and Aramaic, and Hebrew is still around, although it's fundamentally changed in much the same way that you hand Shakespeare to an 8th grader right now, they're not going to have a clue what he's saying, and that's only in a couple hundred years, and you do the same thing with Hebrew. There are idioms that vanish, and nobody speaks Aramaic anymore, apart from scholars who've studied it. But
right.
And so languages change and die out. And the point that I tend to make about that is that if there was a God, He should be smart enough to know that it's useless to deliver an eternal, everlasting message in languages that are going to die out and change, because then you have to come up with clarifications and revisions. But that's separate from whether or not we have good reason to think that Jesus existed. Fitz was on last week. Did he talk about historicity a lot? Yeah. I'm waiting to do a video with Fitz, but my thing is not that Jesus didn't exist. It's that I don't have any good reason to think that He did, but I'm okay with the notion that He did. It doesn't matter much.
Okay, let's take those two things that you said about the Bible and about Jesus. There's two separate things. You have no good reason to believe Jesus existed, and the Bible, it's in languages that died out, and with the Constantine thing, things were added in and things were taken out, and stuff like that. But why would you use those arguments if they didn't really matter?
Because they matter to the people I'm talking to.
Yeah.
If I'm talking, you can't be a Christian. You can't be a Christian and doubt that Jesus existed, died, and was resurrected. I mean, that's kind of at the foundation.
Yeah, do those arguments matter? Like, not matter. Do those arguments strongly disprove Christianity? That do you use those arguments mainly to disprove Christian? Are those the top two why you shouldn't be a Christian?
No. I almost never use either of them. I'm not a mythicist. If I thought it could be demonstrated that Jesus didn't exist, I would use that, because that's the death nail. I mean, because then you just go to where Paul says that if Jesus isn't risen, then all of our faith is in vain. And if he didn't exist, then He wasn't risen. So I mean, the idea that Jesus didn't exist is a death knell for Christianity. Now, don't get me wrong, they'll come up with some way around it in order to hang on to it. But matter of fact, I don't have any particular argument that I start with, because my goal is not to disprove Christianity. It's to get someone to demonstrate that what they believe is reasonable and true.
No, not to disprove Christianity, but to give the reasons why you shouldn't believe Christianity. Those two things.
I don't know. I would imagine.
I bring those up.
I would imagine they are among the many.
Yeah. I mean, I actually lean more toward the mythicist side, and it's primarily because the idea of some itinerant Jewish rabbi running around preaching some message of salvation during that time is pretty unremarkable. There were probably hundreds of them, if not hundreds, at least dozens. It was not an uncommon theological movement. So I don't think that's a remarkable claim at all. I think that it's much more plausible to me that this character that we've labeled Jesus was an amalgamation of maybe a few or maybe many of those itinerant rabbis. And, you know, like a lot of people about whom stories were told like that, a lot of supernatural stuff got bootstrapped onto the legend. And so,
I agree.
So, you know, the supernatural stuff we can pretty well dismiss out of hand. That's you know, that gets bootstrapped onto lots of people.
No, I agree. And this is where I'm going with this, because I'm glad you said those two arguments weren't really the main ones, because if they were, then how would you explain like Islam, for example, because those two arguments doesn't work with Islam. The language of the Quran does not die out.
They don't work against other religions.
And existed.
What claim doesn't work against Islam?
The Quran, you can trace it back to the original transcripts of word for word, letter for letter, in a language that did not die out, which is Arabic, and the Prophet Muhammad, for a fact, existed, because people that weren't Muslim, that weren't,
Jacob, I get it, but when I have an argument that shows a problem with Catholicism, what good does it tell me that it doesn't apply to Baptists? It wasn't intended to.
Yeah. No, because if those two reasons are reasons not to believe Christianity, maybe those two reasons are good enough to at least consider Islam. Because,
no, that's not the way this works. You know, hey, when I show that there's a problem with Catholic teaching, does that mean it's a good reason to be a Baptist? No. My go-to, if there's any argument that I'm prone to using more than any other, it's the argument from Divine Hiddenness. And this is because it's just a proper application of skepticism to point out the sort of things we would expect from a God who existed, and that none of those things ever happen. And, oh, by the way, Divine Hiddenness applies to Allah as well.
Well, and the other thing is that if you were going to make an argument that, you know, what I just said about, you know, my reasons for leaning toward mythicism, and not to say that I think Jesus was a myth or anything, I just lean in that direction more than, you know, more than not. But if the argument that this was an amalgamation of a bunch of itinerant rabbis preaching a similar message, but they were ordinary humans and not the Messiah, wouldn't that be more of an argument to be Jewish?
Yeah, but then you have to actually look at the beliefs. You can't just look at it one way. You have to actually put their beliefs to the test, too.
Right.
Well, of course.
Yeah, but the thing is, I find good reason to at least consider Islam. I do, because...
Well, I'm not... Hang on.
Yeah.
I love the language. I find good reason to at least consider Islam. I've considered Islam.
Yeah.
I don't care whether or not somebody found a good reason to consider something. I care about what their reasons are for thinking that it is likely the case.
Okay, let's go back to you said Allah hides his divinity. I agree with that. You're never going to actually physically prove God exists, but that doesn't mean...
Are you going to be able to detect God in any way?
Okay, this is how you would detect him, and not directly like you say, like if you existed, I never have to see you, I never have to see anything written from you, I never have to hear your voice, but there's still ways to prove that you exist. Maybe someone who communicated with you.
That's not proof.
Who seen you.
That's not proof.
It can? No? It can be?
No.
No. I mean, depending on the witness that you're talking to, the person It might be evidence.
And the circumstances, it certainly can be evidence, and it can be sufficient evidence if we're talking about something mundane like another person. Just like if you tell me you just got a new pet dog, that's a completely trivial claim. I know that there are dogs. I know people keep them as pets. I know people frequently get dogs as pets. And so I'm willing to accept your claim. I'm not convinced that it's completely true, but I'm willing to accept it at face value. If you tell me that you have a cousin, I'm going to accept that at face value too, because it doesn't fundamentally change anything about my world. Okay? But if you tell me that there's a God, I need something more than, oh, I met and talked to this God, because I can hear that from hundreds of thousands of people about hundreds of thousands of gods.
Yeah, and they could be wrong. So what avenue or what way can we detect if a person that talks to God actually did talk to God?
Do you talk to God?
No, in Islam, there's nothing like that.
Sure.
Talking to God or seeing God.
I get it. Jacob, stop. You asked me the question that I asked you. Can we detect God, and how?
We can't detect him.
Was that can or cannot?
No, we can't detect them in that way.
Is that can or cannot?
No, we can't. C-A-N-T, we can't.
C-A-N-T, okay. Okay, stop. If you can't detect God, then you can't have any justification for believing that a God exists, because then you would be claiming to detect the undetectable.
Yeah, but what if somebody did know God and said he speaks to God and he provided evidence and God...
What evidence? Once they provide evidence, if the evidence is sufficient, then haven't you detected God?
Yeah, and that...
Okay, but you said that God can't be detected.
Yeah, but what I meant is like physically see him, physically speak to him, like...
Why not? Can't God physically appear? Can't God physically appear?
He can, but he doesn't do it in...
Okay, he doesn't. So he's hiding. He's hiding from detection, right?
So he actually explained that, because we're not physically capable of seeing him.
Why not? Why didn't he make us?
Yes, he did.
Then why didn't he make us physically capable of detecting him?
Just like he made some animals not be able to fly. We're not physically able to see him.
Okay. Wait. There's stories in the Bible of people who witnessed God.
Well, that's not the Quran, maybe.
Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah, it's not. There is nothing like that in the Quran. Moses asked to see God in the Quran, and he showed them just a piece of his light, and he couldn't take it.
Okay. But doesn't that count? I mean, here's the thing. You're God, and you create people, and you create them so that they cannot detect you. How can you possibly fault them for not detecting you?
You have to listen to the messengers and the prophets he sent.
No. If there's a God who's intelligent and good, he should know that he can send as many messengers as he wants to me, and that will not be sufficient to justify my believing their claims.
Yeah, but if the message is like perfect without contradiction.
How do you know the message is perfect without contradiction?
Because for once, it's been protected.
How do you know that?
They haven't changed it. Because you can date it back. These are in the museums. Real transcripts.
But no. Having access to the originals doesn't mean something's perfect. And even if something was perfect, that doesn't prove there's a God. Yeah,
but it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't prove there's a God. But you have to see the message if the words, when it was written and Muhammad was illiterate, so he could not have written those, on his own. I mean, thought of those on his own, So things like that, the people that knew him.
And so let me get this straight. Your beliefs are based on a founder of a religion who was known to be illiterate, but somehow he wrote this stuff, and you think that's an evidence of a God?
No, it was oral tradition. He relayed it to his followers, and they wrote it down to him.
Okay, so what?
Yeah, so what? And Yeah. Again, how do you determine that that was perfect? How do you know that he told the story right?
Okay, there's certain miracles occur. One of them is the linguistic miracle, and the way it was constructed. There's certain things that you cannot. Yeah, but there's certain things that you cannot like relay verbally through oral tradition and still have it constructed the way the Quran was constructed.
Why?
It's like it's very, because it's very, very difficult to do.
Okay, very difficult doesn't mean impossible, and doesn't mean that it's a miracle of God. And plus, you referred a minute ago. You were talking about look at the content of it. Well, okay, let's look at the content of it.
Yes.
You're saying that there's nothing in the Quran that's problematic at all?
No.
What about saying that? What about saying that menstruation is an illness and that you should stay away from women who are menstruating until they are cleansed? That's not accurate.
Where does it say that?
In Surah, stop. You ask a question in Surah 2:222.
Have you actually read the Quran?
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
No, you don't know what I'm saying because you just asked me where it was, and I told you something that which you agree is wrong. And then you asked me where it was, and I told you, and now you're going to try and tap dance. Is menstruation an illness, and should you stay away from women until they're cleansed afterwards? Yes or no?
We are.
Yes or no?
Refrain from having sex with them. Yes, from sex. Not.
No. It says you're not supposed to be around them.
No. That was before Islamic.
But hang on.
Change them.
Jacob, what's wrong with having sex with someone who's menstruating?
We're told not to.
Why?
Why? What will happen to you if you do?
I mean, nothing will happen if you.
Okay, so why would the Surah say? Why would the Quran say not to do it?
I'll have to look into that. It says not to have sex. It doesn't say not to stay away, but I would have to look into that.
Well, I don't know that it doesn't say not to stay away because there's other verses on this as well. I'm just talking about this particular one. It says it's let women alone at such times and go not onto them until they're cleansed. And when they've purified themselves, which is probably talking about some ritual purification in the eyes of Allah, then go in unto them as Allah hath enjoined upon you. But the thing is, if there's absolutely nothing wrong with having sex with someone who's menstruating, why bring it up in the first place?
Nothing wrong that I know, but...
Does the Quran portray women as equal, with equal rights?
Yes.
It does,
Different but equal. Different but equal.
Yeah, so they have equal rights to property? And they can walk around wearing whatever clothing they want? They don't have to be escorted by men?
Equal protection under the law.
No. I didn't say anything about the law. I said, are they equal? Do they have equal rights? Can they do the same things? Can they hold the same jobs? Can they wear the same clothing? Can they go out on their own in public?
Yes, as long as they're covered in the way that...
Oh, in other words, yeah.
Yes, as long as they're covered. Congratulations. You just put your women and your religion in a horrible bag that I'm going to chuck aside as we go on to another caller.